Let's just stipulate that if you are a columnist for a newspaper and you write an open letter that your editor chooses to print on page 1, you're going to get some reaction. But Globe business columnist Shirley Leung could hardly have predicted the onslaught of name-calling her open letter to the USOC produced. The gist of Shirley Leung's open letter to the United States Olympic Committee is this: Bostonians are grumpy. They like to complain, only do business on their terms, but will eventually come around on the idea of hosting the 2024 Olympic Games.
They have a great idea, and they haven't been able to, tell the people of Boston about it.
Okay, so Shirley is a believer, but she wrote that Boston will only come around after we throw tantrums like 2-year-olds.
When she accuses us of juvenile, quote, tantrums, that is the exact opposite of the truth. This is how adults act when they're fed spin and nonsense.
That's WBZ's John Keller, who says Leung's opinion piece is wrong on so many levels, including calling Bostonians stingy.
Yes, we're stingy about risking billions of precious public dollars on a risky scheme of dubious public benefit.
And John Keller isn't the only one howling. Commonwealth Magazine's Michael Jonas wrote that more than any opinion writer in town, Leung has been carrying the torch, water, her critics would say, for the Olympic effort. Those were fighting words for Globe editor Brian McGrory, who fired back in a letter to Commonwealth Magazine, calling Jonas's piece juvenile and sexist.
One of their editors wrote a post last week that compared our outstanding business columnist Shirley Leung to a pom-pom waving cheerleader.
McGrory further defended Leung's reporting as groundbreaking and critical. Regardless of right or wrong, the whole 2024 debate is now a battle of the name-callers. And this wasn't all. There was even other stuff that I found on the web. Chris Ferrone of the Dig wrote that she's a loathsome columnist. It all comes down to how you feel about the Olympics. I mean, I can remember feeling uncomfortable reading Shirley Leung's piece. I'm actually I'm not neutral on the Olympics. I'm actually kind of in favor of it. But I felt uncomfortable about the way she positioned it. But to have it devolve, even to the point, I was a little surprised that Brian McGrory got into it at that level. It just seemed beneath him in a way. And I didn't, by the way, find the pom-pom cheering thing sexist. I mean, that is kind of a common, almost overused trait term that people use to apply to men and women when they're overly enthusiastic about things. But it's just, this is what it has come to because of how you feel about the Olympics.
Well, unlike you, Emily, I'm not in favor of the
That's
Olympics,
okay.
Which is fine. And I really enjoy Shirley Leung's column. I did think that particular column was a little over the top. She gave no exit for us opponents. If we're for it, we're for it. And if we're against it, we're really secretly for it. So I think that got people's hackles raised a little bit. But this has become, and maybe the exchange between Michael Jonas and Brian McGrory will bring this to an end. But this has become really personal in ways that it shouldn't be. And Shirley Leung has been singled out in ways that she shouldn't be. There's also a fake...
She's a columnist.
There's also a fake Twitter feed that makes fun of her. And there's been some other things. It's just like, it's just been over the top. Forget the personalities, people. Focus on the issues. There's plenty of issues to get into here.
I don't know where I would start with all of this. First, I think this is, Shirley used this, the argument as an attack on her opponents, that the 2-year-old tantrum thing. But this whole argument has the sound of a sandbox. It's, so's your mother kind of a whole thing to it. I was just, first of all, it wasn't a good column. And it's the kind of column you write when you're about to go on vacation and it's late and, you hope that your editor tucks it deep in the paper that very few people find it. For Brian or whoever made the page 1 decision to put that on page 1, I think that was a terrible decision. There wasn't a single fact in that column that was the kind of thing that you would want people to chew over and maybe move to a resolution. So, and the other thing is, the pom-pom cheerleader kind of a thing. That's, that's also a little bit childish. But if that's the worst thing you're called as a columnist at the paper, you're having a good day. And so the idea
They call her
that
a water
would become,
carrier. And,
I mean, sure, but boy, in this business, I'm sure you all see this. If you're going to be out there publicly, you get your shot in your forum, and then other people get their shot back at you, and that's just the way it goes. This whole thing is just, I think, silly.
In some ways, though, it's interesting because it feels like the whole uproar is in some ways proven the opening of her column, right? That people like to complain. I mean, she's talking about how people are sort of so fickle and so moved by emotion and so, so angry, and like they've all proven her right. That being
the comments were awful.
It's sort of spun out of control. Like I personally think the whole thing is ridiculous. The fact that we're having people taking sides in some sort of ridiculously overhyped media battle that is more important to talk about the Boston 2024 effort. I mean, this week we're talking more about this, I feel, than we are about the whole bid book, which has been
that took over by the end of the year.
But we shouldn't be taking any time on this. At the end of the day, she's an opinion columnist. Yes, she should be writing more about facts. She should probably not be playing so sort of loose, I guess, with this idea of writing an open letter, which is never a good idea for a column. And I say that as somebody who has done that myself. But, at the end of the day, everybody just go to your corners, back away. There's going to be more things and more important things to discuss. It's ridiculous. Just walk away. It was a bad idea. The name calling, there's no point to that.
Well, I got a lot of things to say about it. First of all, to your point about there was no interesting thing, no new fact to have people chew over. She's been writing about this a lot, so she's had plenty of new facts leading up to this column. So that wasn't her decision to put it on the front page, that's somebody else's. And so it came across as like maybe this is the first big thing she said, when no, she's been writing about this in great fine detail all along. Now we have an expression down home from Tennessee where I'm from, if you see me in a fight with a bear, you help the bear. Because Shirley Leung can take care of herself. Exactly. Okay, people? Exactly. She can take care of herself. I am not worried about Shirley. Now, I think it's horrible and tacky, and I hate those comments that go to a personal place. Because if you're saying one of your criticisms that she's carrying water for somebody, she's a columnist. If she wants to empty out the Boston Harbor, and because that's her point of support, okay, she's a columnist. You come back at her with why she shouldn't be emptying it out, not saying what she can't do. So, all this name calling is ridiculous. By the way, it delved into some racist stuff too. I need to bring that to the table, which is really, really, I think, embarrassing for all of us in this community because we shouldn't go to that point.
It was embarrassing.